Rules are useful and good, and in the Psalms they are a sweet source of joy. But rules can also be ugly and deadly when they are applied in a legalistic way. For example, God commanded a day off once a week, which makes 52 days a year, so over 7 weeks holiday. But the Pharisees regarded it as a law, not a benefit. So they wanted to make sure you didn't accidentally perform even minor work on that day by adding extra rules. They said you shouldn't carry any tools on the Sabbath, including anything as small as a needle pinned to your clothes, because you might be tempted to repair a hem while on the Sabbath, without remembering that this was work. The definition of work gradually included more and more things. In Jesus' day, they added the category of healing, which included giving medicines or rubbing in ointments. And by the end of the century, even praying for healing was forbidden. On the Sabbath, you couldn't even rescue someone who'd fallen into a pit, unless they were likely to die before the end of the Sabbath, because at least they recognized that saving life overrides other commands. Even then, you had to pull them out with something such as a coat, not with a rope, because that was a tool. Jesus didn't treat the Sabbath as a set of rules. He regarded it as a gift from God. He said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. God's purpose was to give us a rest 1 day a week for our own benefit. So God certainly wouldn't want us to come to harm by obeying this law too strictly. Jesus didn't reject the Old Testament law. He actually told his followers to observe it more strictly than the Pharisees. But instead of the letter of the law, Jesus identified the purpose of God behind the commandments. And he said that God's purpose for the Sabbath law was to give people and servants a rest. And behind the law against murder was God's purpose that we should avoid all hatred. In this way, Jesus demonstrates how we should read the Old Testament commands. We need to ask what God's purpose was. Why did God give that command to people in those circumstances? Having identified these purposes of God, we must take care not to promote them to an inspired status, because we can get it wrong. Jesus criticized the Jews for teaching the commands of men as if they were doctrines of God. We might be tempted to think that our understanding is so perfect that we can teach our interpretations as if they are God's words, and then create a new rule based on that. It would be so much easier if God could simply give us a new rule book periodically, one for each culture in the world, so that, like children, we could do what we're told to do in any circumstance. The writer to the Hebrews complains about believers who refuse to grow out of their infancy. They still want baby's milk when they should be chewing on the meaty bits of Scripture. God expects us to use our brains as well as our bodies to serve him. So, our method for dealing with rules that aren't timeless is to look for the original purpose of that rule. And we do this by asking 2 questions. What was the culture at the time this rule was given in the Bible? And secondly, what was the original purpose of this rule? Now, this can't be left to academics. Answering these questions does need some knowledge about ancient history, but they also require imagination. We need to reconstruct what it was like to live at the time by thinking how we would feel and act in their place. And then we can hear what God is speaking to them, and thereby hear what he says to us in our context. God bless.